Okay, hello everybody. So here we get towards the end of white shark biology. So today I'm going to be chatting about the skin and the spiracle of a great white shark. Very quickly, not a long video. Now why I want to talk about the skin is because I'm not talking about the actual the skin under the scales as you would think the skin under the scales of a fish. What I want to tell you is that here we have a great white shark. Now, unfortunately, you can't see the skin as such, but where sharks and fish are very different is that sharks don't have scales. They don't have scales like fish do. Fish are some fish that live on reefs, etc. The reason fish have scales, you get different kinds of fish. But very scaly fish are generally fish that live on reefs, and the scales protect them against the reef, etc. And when a fish swims compared to a shark, so if you take a fish of a certain size and you take a shark of a certain size, the fish is a lot noisier when it swims through the water than the shark is, because a shark does not have scales. You get other fish like tuna, which are very fast, marlin, sailfish, that kind of thing. And they have very tiny scales. They have a different kind of skin. I mean, even swordfish, their skin is very much like a shark's skin. So the fast animals, they don't have big scales as fish do, in the general sense of the term. Sharks have what are called denticles. And the reason they call them denticles is because basically the great white shark's body is covered with, I don't know how many, I've never counted, but tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tiny little denticles that actually look like teeth. They're basically made of the same substance as the teeth or the tooth of a great white shark. And that is why they're called denticles. And they all go along the shark's body, obviously from the front to the back, they pointing backwards. So if you take a shark like this and you rub it along its body like that, it's very smooth. And the great white shark is extremely hydrodynamic through the water. But if you rub against the grain, it's almost impossible. If you take the palm of your hand on a big great white shark and you rub it along the length of the shark, from nose to tail, it'll be very smooth. But if you take your hand and you try and push it from tail to nose, your hand will jam on the shark because those denticles will actually grab onto your hand like sandpaper. In fact, the first sandpaper ever used was shark's skin. That's a fact. The first sandpaper ever used that we know of was shark's skin, and it's called denticles. And they've tried all sorts of tricks, human beings. They've made these swimming costumes for Olympic swimming champions and professional swimmers to try and mimic a shark's skin, because it's believed that if you could mimic a shark's skin and turn it into a full costume, you'd be able to swim through the water much more efficiently and much quicker. So that is what I'm going to tell you about the skin. Nothing much more than that. Denticles. The only other thing is that if you go and you pick up a fish, or when you hold a fish, big fish like this in your arms, and you put it down, you wash your arms afterwards, you're not going to feel anything. It's just going to be a bit slimy, and you wash it off and it's fine. If you take a shark and hold it like this, after you've held the shark, your arms are going to be red because the denticles will actually inflame the skin on your arms. And I found that out when I was very young. It was a big great white shark that my father caught. It was the biggest one he ever caught, a 4.7 meter great white shark. And I was sitting on the trailer where the shark was laying as a young boy, and I had my arm over the shark, and my mom was taking a photograph. And afterwards, my arm was all raw and itchy, and I couldn't understand why. And that was my first experience with what the denticles of a shark's skin can actually do to your arms. Can actually make it really inflamed and red and itchy. All right, so that is a denticle. Now, On this model here, we don't have what is called a spiracle. Now, a spiracle would be behind the eye on a shark, on a great white shark. It's actually behind the eye on all shark species. And certain shark species, the spiracles are very large, especially your benthic sharks. Sharks that live on reefs and go and lay on a reef or move very slowly through the water. Skates and rays that go and lie on the bottom, they've got these large spiracles, and the spiracles are there to assist in aerating the blood. On a great white shark, you hardly see the spiracle. The spiracle is tiny, and it's there for aerating the blood. But the great white shark is an active swimming shark. It's a pelagic shark. Therefore, it's moving all the time, and it's taking in water through the mouth, and the water is exiting through the gills over there, so the water is flowing in there in the mouth, exiting through the gills, and it's sucking in oxygen. So it's not necessary for great white shark to have large spiracles. If it did, if it was an animal that went and lay on the seabed to rest and sleep, then it would have larger spiracles. So that is what I'm going to tell you. It's a very quick video. I don't know how many minutes long this video is, but it doesn't matter. So now you know about the skin of a great white shark, and that it has these two things just behind the eyes called spiracles, and they're there to assist in aerating the blood. So thank you very much.